Support for WMFE comes from JustCallMo.com and attorney Mo DeWitt, proud presenter of WMFE's Engage program. Mo DeWitt is committed to offering legal guidance in personal injury cases, such as car accidents and slip and falls. Offices in Orlando. More at JustCallMo.com. Welcome to Engage, leading conversations that matter. Engage is made possible with the support of inaugural sponsor, JustCallMo.com, and the support of listeners like you.
You're listening to Engage on 90.7 WMFE. I'm Sharon Stone. Coming up, a look at Florida's teams in the NCAA tournaments, and we'll find out if that March Madness pool you've bought into can land you in jail. Then the city of Orlando wants fit, healthy, and clean communities, so is plogging the answer? But first, it is Election Day in Florida. Polls are open until 7 for the presidential primary. This is a closed primary state, so voters can only cast a ballot for a candidate in their registered party. Democrats in this state canceled their primary and gave all 224 of their delegates to President Joe Biden. WMFE reporter Joe Mario Pedersen stopped by polling places in Orange County. He joins us now. Thank you so much for stopping in, Joe Mario.
Hey, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
So the focus is on the presidential primary today, but it's not the only thing on the ballot in some areas like Orange County.
That's correct. And actually, today I spent the majority of my morning over in Winter Park, where they have a race for mayor going on. They have a commissioner seat that's open right now as well. Sheila DeCiccio and Michael Cameron were running for mayor. Over for that commission seat, you saw Jason Johnson, Stockton Reeves, and Craig Russell all running today as well. So Winter Park was actually pretty busy in each of the precincts that I saw today, specifically for those local elections.
And I guess you could make the argument that these would have even more of a, day-to-day impact on their lives versus a presidential primary.
That's exactly what everyone who I spoke to was saying, that yes, that the general election will be important. And yes, it does take up a lot of media coverage. But, the people who came out today recognized that it's these elections, these commissioner seats or mayoral races that really impact their lives. Really, when talking to folks today, the big issue that I kept hearing over and over again for folks in Winter Park was the state of development for Winter Park, that people had a lot of concerns about commercial development and what was being done about finding a balance between bringing in new commercial development, being environmentally friendly, and retaining the sense of, I guess, culture and peace that Winter Park has, right? And wanting to keep that the way it is while also trying to find some sort of growth. Someone that I spoke to today, a resident who's been there for a long time, Daniel Wise, actually had a lot to say about that and was on the side of keeping Winter Park in development.
I personally believe in development. It's like I like to see some new construction and a little higher density, but in a town like ours, again, it's a balancing act, trying to figure out what's going to preserve quality of life and still be, environmentally good, and provide places for people to live that are close to where they might want to work or where the transportation is.
So as a result of that, he went into the booths today specifically to vote for Sheila DeCiccio and Jason Johnson, hoping to see that continued development. But, it certainly spoke to people who were on the opposite of that issue as well. And we're hoping to see less of that commercial development in Winter Park.
So in addition to the local race, we also have the national. And
That's
former
right.
President Trump got enough delegates already to secure the nomination. So what did you learn about why Republicans are casting a ballot today?
Yeah, that was really interesting because, like I said, the big reason why people came out was local. But, this was the big talking point was the presidential nomination, right, for the Republican ticket. And while everyone that I spoke to was, aware that Donald Trump had secured this, they were coming out and they were still casting their vote for symbolic reasons, right? I spoke to some folks who put out their vote almost as an act of protest, specifically not voting for Donald Trump. Miles Dearden, a Winter Park resident, specifically came out there because he was upset with the choices that he had.
Unfortunately, being a Republican, I can't actually vote other than the Republican ticket in this primary, and I wouldn't vote for the people on the Republican ticket.
But you also had the exact opposite of that as well. You know, you had folks out there who were very much in big support of Donald Trump and really wanted to show support for Trump by casting their vote today. You know, even though knowing like he's got it already, they just wanted to be able to show that support, come out and show the strength that he has in Orlando, in Winter Park, right? People like Jack Heyman really wanted to show that support.
When I see that somebody's run many businesses and accomplished many things in life, and I've been in business, and I go, there's no way I could do probably a fraction of what President Trump has done, for example. And I look at the accomplishments and the results, not so much the personality, because everybody, sometimes the easygoing are the best, and sometimes the hard-nosed people are the best.
Yeah, so for Jack Heyman there, you know, he's saying that, you know, while Trump can get in trouble for many of the things that he says sometimes with the media, for Jack, you know, he's pleased with what he's seen from Trump's resume and his accomplishments.
WMFE reporter Joe Mario Pedersen, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
This month, Governor Ron DeSantis appointed Glen Gilzean as Orange County Supervisor of Elections to fill the rest of Bill Cowell's term. Cowles, a Democrat, retired in January after 30 years. The governor's appointment puts a Republican in charge of 2024 elections in Orange County. Gilzean is administrator of the DeSantis-appointed Central Florida Tourism Oversight District. It's the former Reedy Creek Improvement District that governed Disney. I started our conversation by asking Gilzean if he currently is serving in both roles.
Yes, I'm in both capacities until the board takes action, and the board is planning to take action. However, I've been taking time off to focus solely on the elections. The election SOE role is very important, and I've been laser focused on this. The district is in really good hands with the capable team that we built over there, and everything is running smoothly.
But your plan is to transition out of that role with the district fully?
That is correct. I will be transitioning out of the district administrator role.
Do you know how long that process would take?
I don't want to get ahead of the board. The board has to deliberate and take action. But I think that they understand that this role that I'm currently in as a supervisor of elections is a very vital one, especially during a presidential year.
Okay. Let me ask you this. That district administration job, the salary's not secret. You were in a $400,000 a year position, taking about a 50% pay cut. What made you want to take this challenge on?
So, one, for me, it's never about the money. If you recall, when I worked at the Central Florida Urban League, the Urban League was in debt over $1 million. And before I received my first paycheck, which took 9 months, I didn't have any pay at the Urban League. And then to go and turn that organization around in 18 months and make it solvent, again, for me, it's bigger than money. It's always been the mission. Now, as it relates to your question a little bit deeper is, when I received the call, I've always said this publicly and privately that my goal is to serve. And I received the call asking to serve, and I said, yes, sir. And I went on and made it happen.
Did you have any concerns about taking on this role in a really divisive political climate, just in terms of safety and security?
No, I felt that the reason why I was tapped is because of my track record. One of the things that we did over at Central Florida Tourism Oversight District, formerly known as Reedy Creek, was brought transparency. And I really believe that they called me because of the fact that they wanted to make sure that our elections process have an added layer of security. And as tomorrow, we're kicking off our first ever live stream. From what I understand, we're the only supervisor of elections office in the state of Florida that actually has a live streaming feature to allow citizens, the public, to come in and see the great work that this office is doing. But more importantly, to give confidence. And, I'm excited about kicking that off tomorrow.
What would our audience need to know about viewing that live stream? Because this is open to anyone.
That is correct. All you have to do is go to our website, ocfelections.gov. On the right there, big and bold, it'll say live stream. You click on it, you register, and then upon completion, it takes you directly into the site where you can see the ballots, the vote by mail ballots being opened.
Okay, so this is to watch ballot processing. There's no concerns about privacy of voters.
So the way the cameras are positioned, it maintains the level of security, but we're adding enhanced levels of transparency. And here's the reason why. If you physically came down to the Supervisor of Elections office in person, you would have the opportunity to see that in person. If there was more people in the room, then you would step outside and watch the process via a live stream, via a short closed circuit TV. So my thesis was, well, if you can physically come here and watch it, then you should be able to actually be at home on your couch watching it from your iPad. So the same level of security is intact, but it's just an added layer of transparency.
So you are in week 2 of this new position. Do you feel ready for the state's presidential primary Tuesday?
Oh, absolutely. One of the things I said at day was the fact that Bill Cowell left an amazing team here, well over 425 years worth of experience. And the team is phenomenal. And we are doing some amazing things. I feel more than ready. I was able to follow the process. This past weekend, we completed our supply distribution. We completed our poll worker training, and we wrapped up early voting. This morning, voting equipment was delivered to 207 locations. Our Election Day phone bank is preparing for all the calls, and the final details are put into place. Again, we are ready.
You brought up Bill Cowell, who you are replacing. He served in that position, just the people, for more than 30 years. Have you talked to him?
Absolutely. Once I got the call, the very second call was to Bill. And I was so honored to have that chat. We talked for days. He actually came by the office and we did a walkthrough together. Spoke to Bill. He gave me his cell phone number. He said, anything I need, he's available. But again, he left a capable and amazing team, and it's beyond blessed.
Any advice you're willing to share with us that Bill gave to you?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that he said was, hey, your job is to be the ultimate cheerleader, not only internally, but externally. So on the internal side, make sure that the staff has the tools they need. On the external side, make sure that people are aware of all the great things that we're offering, and make sure that they know that when they cast their ballot, they have full faith and confidence that their vote will count. And that's exactly what I'm doing.
Do you have that full faith in Florida elections?
I do have a full faith in the Orange County Office of the Supervisor of Elections. This team is more than capable, and I am beyond proud of this team.
There's more with our conversation with Orange County Election Supervisor Glen Gilzean ahead. And later we'll talk March Madness and see if that office pool could put you in jail. I'm Sharon Stone. You're listening to Engage on 90.7 WMFE. We are streaming online at WMFE.org. You're listening to Engage on 90.7 WMFE. I'm Sharon Stone. If you miss any part of the show, you can listen to the Engage podcast at your convenience. Ahead on this program, the city of Orlando has found a way to encourage fitness while beautifying our neighborhoods.
It's basically a mashup of the word plaka up, which means picking up, and jogging. So basically, it just means picking up trash while you're jogging.
We'll learn about plogging and where you can plug this Saturday. Right now, let's continue our conversation with Orange County Election Supervisor Glen Gilzean. The discussion turned to some criticisms that had been leveled against Gilzean and his lack of experience working elections. After it was announced that you were appointed by the governor, Congressman Maxwell Frost, State Representative Anna Eskamani, Senator Linda Stewart were among Central Florida elected officials who released a statement that starts with the following, quote, Ron DeSantis continues to abuse the power of his office to appoint his friends and allies to elected positions that they are not qualified for, end quote. What is your response to criticism that you do not have experience running an election?
The response I have is that they want the same exact thing that every Orange County citizen wants, which is an open and transparent elections process that is safe and secure. And that is exactly what I'm offering. And just to be very consistent, it's the fact that, again, everyone can log on to our website and watch the process starting tomorrow morning, which has never been done in any office in the state of Florida. So I welcome them. Plus, I will ask them to come down to the office and let's meet face to face and talk, because I want to hear their concerns, just like I want to hear every Orange County citizen's concerns, and make sure that we're able to meet that prior to going into the November elections.
That same statement goes on to say Glen Gilzean is a Ron DeSantis loyalist whose top priority seems to be making Ron DeSantis happy, not protecting the integrity of our elections. This move signals the governor's focus on silencing the voices of Central Florida voters as one of the most northern progressive hubs in our state. Let me first ask if you would like to respond to that.
So what I would just say is that, again, the governor selected me because of my track record. I mean, I've been here in the Central Florida region, and all of those individuals you mentioned, we stood side by side on issues of elections and getting out to vote. As you recall, I was the CEO of the Central Florida Urban League, and we put together one of the most robust voter education, voter outreach programs anywhere in the country. We also worked on the census program, which also was able to get the word out. So, I hear their phrases and the comments, but I think we all have one goal, is to ensure that when someone casts their ballot and they can count and believe truly that their vote will count, and it's done in a transparent and secure way.
Do you have any plans to reduce early voting in what is a very blue district, or maybe not have early voting on a Sunday when there are these souls to the polls events typically?
So I don't have any plans to reduce early voting. Again, one of the things as a former Urban League CEO was advocating for that. Period.
Okay. While you are in this position, are there changes that you would like to enact?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, additional transparency, which is kicking off tomorrow. And we actually did a dry run, a test run last week, and it went without a hitch. And I'm excited about really taking transparency to the next level. And tomorrow will be our day one. So I'm looking forward to it.
Beyond Tuesday's presidential preference primary, I'm wondering, how are you preparing voter rolls for elections later this year?
So I'm going to be working with the staff and learning how the process works, and then just going from there.
Okay. Is there a commitment to make sure that the voter registration rolls are accurate? Do people have any concerns to worry about?
I won't say, I don't think there's any concerns to worry about, because one, I'm going to follow the law. And I have a more than capable team. Again, Bill left us a team that has over 425 years worth of experience. There hasn't been an issue prior to Bill leaving. And my goal is to make sure that there's no issues going forward.
And Bill Cowles really was known for embracing mail-in ballots and reaching out to those who might have had their ballots challenged in time for them to count. Do you anticipate continuing to lean into mail-in and early voting in Orange County?
So we have, and specifically in this election. I started on March the 4th. Nothing has changed. The only enhancement was the added transparency, so that way everyone feel confident that their vote will count.
You mentioned your track record of transparency. Do you have any political aspirations that you are preparing for?
I only laugh because as of right now, no, I have no aspirations. I am just blessed to have this opportunity at this time, and I'm just going to be focused on being the best supervisor of elections for this upcoming cycle.
Okay. How about as supervisor of elections for Orange County in November, because this will be elected then?
So at this time, I have not made any decisions on re-election. Right now, I'm focused on getting through Tuesday, which is election day, and it's learning the meeting with the staff and working with the staff to ensure that Orange County citizens can really feel confident on their votes counting and the process is safe and secure.
You are the first new supervisor of elections in Orange County in literally decades. What do you say to the hundreds of thousands of voters in Orange County?
I just say to them that they can, without a doubt, feel confident, not just in me, but also the staff, to ensure that when they cast their ballot, it's safe and secure. And as we move forward, you can see additional transparency measures by leveraging technology. And I welcome anyone to come down here, share their thoughts, they can email me, they can call me, because I do want to hear from our citizens and take that feedback and figure out how we make the process better.
Glen Gilzean is the newly appointed supervisor of elections in Orange County. You're listening to Engage on 90.7 WMFE. This year's March Madness brackets are set. The games start this week. If you're looking for a possible Cinderella story, don't forget about that small private institution in Volusia County heading to the tournament for the first time as a Division I team.
This is profoundly exciting for Stetson University in Glen, Florida. We're going to take Stetson from Florida gem to national treasure, and there's no faster way to do that than to be a part of March Madness. As president, this is just the best. Go Hatters!
That was Stetson University President Christopher Rollkey on Selection Sunday when the men's basketball team found out they will play UConn Friday afternoon in Brooklyn. Matt Marshall covers college basketball and UCF for the Orlando Sentinel. He joins us to break down Florida's presence in the NCAA tournament and the NIT. First question for Matt. Does Stetson have a chance in the big dance against the defending national champs?
There's always a chance, but when you look at the statistics, I think 16 seeds versus number one seeds in the NCAA tournament have lost 150 times to 2. Now, I say there's a chance because last year, a 16 did upset a number one when Fairleigh Dickinson beat Purdue. It was like I said, it's the only second time that's ever happened. So it's very rare, but it's not you never want to say there isn't a chance. But, again, it's going to be difficult. Stetson is going to be facing off against the defending national champions in UConn. They're the number one seed. They were the number one team going into the tournament. It's going to be a difficult road to kind of get down there.
Hey, I went to UVA, so I think we kind of started the number one seed losing to 16 the prior year. But
Yeah.
Matt, can you also speak to it's not easy to make the tournament?
No, it isn't. Again, a lot of that comes down to, for a lot of teams, it comes down to you have to win your conference tournament. They get an automatic qualifying bid. That's how Stetson got in. A lot of the power conferences, the SECs, the Big Tens, they can get an automatic qualifier, but then they also have a lot of at-large because of the strength of their conference. But for a lot of smaller conferences, it's really comes down to win your tournament or you're done. That's how challenging it can be. And you could see how challenging it is because we also have, with the 68 team field, you also had 4 play-in games. So there are teams right there. There are 8 teams that, have to basically play additional game to even get into the NCAA tournament. So it can be difficult. And this year was a particularly difficult year for the selection committee. They had a lot of teams that they thought were locks that got bumped out, because of tournament play. And there were a lot of teams that maybe they called it, sneaking up and grabbing a bid, that maybe that they thought was going to go somewhere else. So there were some teams that thought they were going to be in the tournament that weren't. USF is one of those that I think thought was going to be in the tournament and didn't make it. So it can be a challenge. And once you get there, it's the most exciting thing in the world.
And I want to talk to you about USF in just a minute, but back to Stetson. Even if they don't pull off an upset, it's kind of a big deal that we're even talking about them. Like, they're getting some national attention. That's significant for the school.
Oh, it's very significant. I mean, you're talking about you're going to be on national television. You're going to be everyone's looking at you in your brackets. You know, when the fans have those little tournament brackets, they'll be watching it there. It's a huge benefit for Stetson and the program and the school. I mean, you'll get lots of just the eyes on factor. Could add a lot of economic financial benefits in the well. You can get kids who maybe want to go to school at Stetson because they've seen Stetson, on this tournament and like, okay, maybe I want to go play basketball at Stetson, or I want to go see what Stetson's like. So this is huge. This is huge for Donnie Jones, Stetson coach, because again, if you're out there recruiting, there's nothing better to tell a recruit is, hey, listen, we just played against the number one team in the country. If we win, it's great. If we don't win, hey, we're still there. And that's something that I think any player growing up playing basketball wants to be, aspires to do, is to play in the NCAA tournament.
And you can just tell on the campus, they're so excited for this. So it's a big deal for them. But they're not the only local team to pay attention to. The Gators are also playing on Friday. What do you think of that matchup?
Yeah, I think Florida obviously, got to the SEC championship game, lost to Auburn in a hard-fought game. This is big for them as well. And I know they're an established program, but let's not forget Todd Golden, their coach, is only in his second year. Florida hadn't been in the NCAA tournament since the 2020-2021 season. To get back there to way the season they've kind of had will be crucial for them. They have to unfortunately wait to find out who they're going to play. Boise State and Colorado play in the playing game, so whoever wins that game will face Florida. But I think this is a Florida team that, based on how they've performed this year, could make it a deep run, maybe a Sweet 16 run. The only thing that kind of maybe hurts them out a little bit is they had one of their center, Michael Handleton got hurt in the SEC championship game, suffered a gruesome injury, and probably will not play in the tournament. So not having him is going to be a kind of a downer for them. But again, getting into this tournament, getting in the tournament field and playing these games, they have an opportunity to make a deep run.
And you mentioned USF a couple minutes ago. They're playing UCF tonight in the NIT. What's the mood around that?
Well, I think there's excitement in a sense of they're continuing to play. Now, as I mentioned, USF maybe thought, that they should have been in the NCAA tournament. They've had a really good year. And they've won 22 of their last 24 games. They won the American Athletic Conference regular season championship, but they got bumped out, in the semifinals against UAB, and that unfortunately knocked them out of the mix for the NCAA tournament. So they're kind of a prize is now they get to travel to Orlando and face against the rival UCF. And UCF again, this is their first year coming off the Big 12. They won 7 games. They've beaten 3 ranked teams for the first time in the program's history. They've had a good year. They were picked to finish last in the Big 12, and they were able to finish, above that mark. And so, but they would love to have an opportunity to beat their rival, to move on and try to make a deep run in the NIT.
Because this is a totally different level of school conference that UCF is playing in.
Yes, very much so. They're playing in a power conference. I mean, they were playing, I think they had something like 8 or 9 ranked teams they played this season in their conference schedule. And they never had that in the American. American maybe had 1 or 2 ranked teams. So these are teams that most of them that they face this year are playing in the NCAA tournament. And UCF at one point thought they might have had a chance to get in there. Unfortunately, they had to make a deep run in the Big 12 tournament, and they weren't able to do it. So again, this is an opportunity for UCF to finish strong. Johnny Dawkins, their head coach, told us, to get to the postseason, their first year in the Big 12 with the schedule they faced, they felt like this would be huge for them. And it kind of carries over, as we talked about with Stetson, it carries over into the next year. When they go out recruiting, it's an opportunity to say, look, we got to the postseason, we played these teams, we can do this kind of run and maybe get to the NCAA tournament next year.
So, Matt, we're talking about the postseason. How do teams perceive making it to the NIT versus the NCAA tournament?
Well, the NIT, it can be disappointing. I mean, I'm not going to discourage, but I mean, there are players who, they want to get to the NCAA tournament. Now, a lot of them are excited they're still playing because there are only 100 teams that are really, invited to go to the NCAA tournament and the NIT tournament. So you're one of, and there's 355 teams in college basketball. So Division I. So, you're excited that you're a part of that 100 teams, but you're maybe with the thought, hey, I'd love to get in the NCAA tournament. The NIT doesn't have nearly as much prestige. It used to be played, their championship games used to be played in New York in Madison Square Garden. It's now played in Indianapolis at Hinkle Field. So they use a little bit of that prestige as well. But I think if you're a coach, if you're a player, you're excited to be playing in late March. You want to be playing in a tournament game. It's win or go home. It's win or go home. So I think that's the excitement about it. And especially in a game for UCF and USF, for instance, it is added bonus that you're playing your rival and state rival. And there's a lot of trash talking going on social media from both fan bases. So that adds an extra element of it. So I think while it doesn't have the prestige of the NCAA tournament and the March Madness, I still think it's important. I still think you're seeing a lot of teams that really want to win and have a large run. But there are some teams that didn't want to participate. There were about 5 or 6 teams that just chose not to take an NCAA bid, including Oklahoma, which was a team that would have come from the Big 12 as well. So it's not necessarily a prestigious event like it used to be. I just think March Madness is an incredible time. And I think the reason that this tournament is so popular among fans is the fact that we love the Cinderella tournament. We love a team that comes in and pulls an upset in the first round and maybe gets to the second round or maybe goes to the Sweet 16. We love that kind of. I think as fans, we love to see that.
Matt Marshall covers college athletics for the Orlando Sentinel. This is the time of year when NCAA bracket pools begin circulating around the office. The American Gambling Association estimated that people bet more than $15 billion in unauthorized bracket pools just last year, and everybody pretty much scoffs over the illegality of such pools. It's a taste of illicit gambling in a safe environment. Nobody's truly concerned about prosecution. But exactly how illegal are office betting pools? I spoke with Orlando attorney David Haas. He is also a former state and federal prosecutor. I started the conversation by simply asking him if March Madness betting pools are legal in Florida.
So technically, as of now, no. Does that mean they're not happening in Florida? Of course not. But technically, the only online, sports betting has got to be run through the Seminole Tribe, and it's a felony otherwise to do it. So everybody's little friendly pools are probably technically illegal, but it doesn't mean there's been any prosecution in the state of Florida of anybody for running their office March Madness pool.
I want to talk to you more about online betting. Can you elaborate on, as of right now, the laws for online betting for people living in Florida?
Sure. So again, the Seminole Tribe, they've got the license, the only license through the state of Florida. And so for any online betting, whether it's sports, football, basketball, or whether you have card games or slots, that can only be done. So FanDuel, DraftKings, the more popular sports betting websites are not permitted to run in Florida. Their VPNs or basically everything gets blocked.
And there are some legal challenges from other casinos in South Florida claiming that that's actually a monopoly and not fair to them, that the Seminole Tribe controls online betting.
The litigation started a few years ago. Mind you, the state of Florida receives a handsome sum of funds from the Seminole Tribe for giving them that sole license. And so a few years ago in federal court, a couple private companies filed a federal lawsuit against Florida and the Seminole Tribe for basically what is their so-called monopoly over their ability to be the only sports and really online gambling platform available to the residents and citizens of Florida. At first, the Seminole Tribe lost that litigation, and then it went up to federal appellate court that covers Florida, which is the 11th Circuit. And a 3-judge panel reversed that, handing a win to the Seminole Tribe. And now it is basically being presented to the U.S. Supreme Court to determine whether or not that is an appropriate final remedy for the Seminole Tribe and for Florida and for the citizens. As of today, Seminole Tribe still rules. It's up to the U.S. Supreme Court to weigh in to see if that will stay or whether it will change.
In your experience, how long would that kind of process take to see if the U.S. Supreme Court would weigh in?
At first, what will happen is the U.S. Supreme Court has to decide whether or not they're going to accept the case and whether, it'll I think they're briefing those right now, at least last I checked. If the Supreme Court then accepts the case, it'll get put on the calendar probably for later this year. So you could have a ruling, some point later this year from the Supreme Court if they accept it. If they decline to take the case, then the current system will be, what prevails, the status quo, and the Seminole Tribe will remain in charge.
If the U.S. Supreme Court declines to take the case, could there be further legal challenges more on a state level?
I would think, but at that point, the federal court would have weighed in. There may be, some changes legislatively, depending on what happens. Things always sort of fluctuate, but it seems as though the Seminole Tribe has captured the hearts and minds of the Florida legislature and the governor. And so you really look to see if there was any way for additional litigation. But I think the best chance for that, the laws to change, is going to be the current pending litigation.
So what about these online advertisements that I see on TV? DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM. Are those allowed here?
Technically, no. Those companies, I believe there's a way to spoof your VPN to get one that shows as you being in a different state. I don't want to give advice on those types of things, but
sure.
it is a pretty easy around in the current system to fool where you're located. But yeah, technically the Seminole Tribe and sort of the Hard Rocks run what you're allowed to do with gambling online.
Can you speak to the punishments if someone were to choose to basically do it anyway?
I don't think anybody has ever been prosecuted in the state of Florida for, as I mentioned, the March Madness kind of pool, right? That being said, if your pool is small, relatively low dollars, nobody's going to gain interest. If you get into where you have hundreds of people involved with tens of thousands being wagered, you're probably going to grab the attention of law enforcement a bit more. And it is a felony. The legislature actually upped it from a misdemeanor to a felony, I think, in the last couple of years. So they're actually making it more serious, not less.
David Haas is a defense attorney based in Orlando. Coming up, plogging, the new Swedish phenomenon that is, in a way, sweeping Orlando. We want to hear from you. Let us know what you'd like to hear more about, what you're glad you've heard. You can email us at engage@wmfe.org. I'm Sharon Stone. You are listening to Engage on 90.7 WMFE. Listening to Engage on 90.7 WMFE. I'm Sharon Stone. This Saturday, the City of Orlando wants you to go plogging. You didn't mishear me.
Plogging is my new favorite word.
Yes, plogging. That was Madison Zathmary, coordinator with the city's Keep Orlando Beautiful organization.
Plogging is a term that first emerged in Sweden back in 2016, and it's basically a mashup of the word plocka up, which means picking up, and jogging. So basically, it just means picking up trash while you're jogging. And now it's a worldwide sport. People do it not only while they're jogging, but while they're hiking, skateboarding. There's all kinds of activities, and anyone can do it. You don't necessarily have to run. You can run, walk, roll, whatever moving outside looks like to you. You can just incorporate litter pickup into that.
And this Saturday, the City of Orlando will host Plogging for Pints, an effort to bring the community together for some physical exercise coupled with neighborhood beautification. Zathmary explained to us how plogging became a thing in Orlando.
There were a couple of organizations in our community who used to run plogging events in the downtown area before COVID. It's been a few years, and we are really proud and we're really happy to bring it back to Orlando with this worldwide phenomenon of plogging, and we have some awesome partners who are doing that with us.
So we're talking about plogging for pints. Where does the pints come in?
Yes, good question. So our event is kicking off at the Ivanhoe Park Brewing Company. And immediately after our plogging event, they're having their Halftoberfest, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's kind of like celebrating Christmas in July, right? So it's at the halfway to Oktoberfest. So anyone can participate in the plogging event, but of course afterward, the Halftoberfest is at the brewery.
So you're mentioning anyone can participate. Who can get involved? What do you need to bring?
Sure. So there's very few things you need to bring because we're going to be providing giveaways, snacks, water. We just ask that folks bring their unwanted athletic clothing and sneakers and a reusable water bottle, since we will be hosting a sneaker and clothing collection drive as well.
That will also be an additional benefit to just keeping the city beautiful, recycling old, maybe unwanted things that people have sitting around their house.
Yes, yeah. We're asking folks to bring in their gently used sneakers. Track Shack is partnering with us, and they will be donating those sneakers to sneaker seekers, so that way folks in the community who may need them can receive them for free. We also will be recycling sneakers that are destroyed, or maybe not so gently used, maybe more extremely used, and those will be broken down and shredded and made into new sneakers. So we're partnering with Florida Fabric Collective and OECO on a clothing swap and a sneaker collection as well.
Well, sounds like a really fun way to just clean up and do a lot of good things in a lot of good ways. Why is this a priority for the city?
Keep Orlando Beautiful does several litter cleanup and community engagement events throughout the year. We really want to engage everyone in Orlando to take pride in our environment and our shared community spaces. You know, for this event, we're going to be cleaning the shoreline around 3 different lakes. And it not only keeps our waterways beautiful and keeps the city looking like a beautiful place to live, but it also prevents that litter, especially those plastic pollutants, from poisoning our waterways and eventually our oceans.
Does an event like Plogging for Pints actually make a difference in Orlando?
Yeah, so we do anticipate to gather several hundred pounds of litter from events like these. So we walk away with much cleaner lakes. And we also hope that this event really ignites not only an interest in plogging, but an interest in living a zero waste lifestyle in general for our residents.
And as I'm talking to you, I'm realizing in addition to the environmental benefits, sounds like there could be a physical benefit too.
Absolutely, yeah. For a lot of people, they engage in plogging because the bending and squatting and twisting to grab the litter on the go, it kind of engages different muscles than running would alone. So it's really more of a well-rounded workout. I tried it. It's super challenging, but honestly, it's really fun.
And one of the partners in Plogging for Pints is the Florida Fabric Collective, a group that finds ways to repurpose old clothing. Sarah Phillips is the founder. She joined us to talk about turning fashion into a force for good and clothing recycling.
Florida Fabric Collective is actually an offshoot of a bigger organization, global organization called Remake. And it is a nonprofit that's based here in the US, but we have ambassadors all around the world and hubs all around the world. And so we work for labor rights and climate justice in the fashion industry or the clothing industry. And so what we really are attempting to do is not only educate the general public about clothing, the clothing industry, their own personal clothing habits, consumption habits, but also to advocate for laws and legislation and regulation that would improve working conditions and all different kinds of things about climate justice and climate change.
What made you want to partner with the Plogging for Pints initiative?
We have done a clothing swap in the past, back in October. And so I think this is going to be a long-term partnership because we are in alignment on a lot of our, goals and visions of what we would like to see, which is keeping clothes out of landfill and in circulation for a lot longer. We'll likely continue to work together in the future because we have done so in the past.
Having people bring in their old unused sneakers. Can you help us understand how that can actually be a benefit in terms of just the recycling of that?
Yeah, so a lot of people don't know, but I think it's the latest statistic is something like 40% of landfill waste is actually textile waste. And so for sneakers and specifically, a lot of people, they wear them for 6 months, a year, especially runners, and then they just don't really know what to do with them. So we're giving them, with this event, we're giving them an option of actually recycling them with an organization called Sneaker Impact. And Sneaker Impact is located in Miami in the Little Haiti area, and it's a massive warehouse facility that intakes the shoes, and then they have their own on-site kind of grinding machine that grinds up the shoes and uses them for other things like building materials, etc.
I'm not sure I realized that shoes were that difficult or involved to recycle.
Yeah, there are many different components to shoes. It's not just the fabrics, but like the fabrics often contain plastics and polyesters, and then there's the rubber components and the metal components. So they're very hard to break down, but the good thing that the gentleman that owns Sneaker Impact in Miami, he's come up with this machine that actually will take the shoe in its entirety and grind it all up. So it's all the pieces together.
People are also being asked to, bring in old clothes you don't use anymore. What would you see, being redone with those?
So with old clothes, really with a clothing swap, our goal is to kind of inspire people for their in their consumption habits, and then also to keep clothes in circulation. So again, a lot of people don't know where their clothes go to once they've donated them or give them away, when the truth is, or the reality is, there really is no such thing as away. It ends up somewhere. It will either end up in a landfill, it will end up in an ocean, it will end up in a secondhand market in a country like Ghana, for example. So what we're trying to do is just keep the clothes in circulation for as long as possible, and also save people some money.
Sarah, for people who can't make it to this Plogging for Pints event specifically this weekend, what is your message or maybe even challenge to people, our audience?
Mindful consumption, being mindful of why they're buying, of their shopping habits, becoming interested and curious about what your clothes are made of, the materials that they're made of, where do those come from? And then lastly, kind of a plug for Remake, who makes them? Who is making these clothes? Are they paid a fair and living wage? Are they in working conditions that are respectful of humans? Are they in clean, safe working conditions? So I think this is really the goal of the clothing swaps that we do.
Is there anything that someone shopping can do to be aware of everything that you've just mentioned and make those smart decisions? How would you do that as you're buying?
Well, this is a bit of a difficult one, but I think first and foremost, ask yourself, do I need this? Do I actually need this? Can I shop my own closet? Do I have something that already exists in my own closet? So I think we kind of confuse ourselves with needs and wants, right? So as humans, we have this kind of desire for novelty, right? So we want something new and fresh, but actually when we go and shop our own closet, we take a look and then we see we have 5 or 6 of the same blouse or shirt or pair of jeans. Then we actually don't really need something new. So that's my first piece of advice. My second piece of advice would be to the extent that you can, try to buy natural materials, try to buy from brands that actually have sustainability reporting. Maybe that's been vetted by a third party in some way. So third party verified data that these brands are putting out, and buy from brands that are solidly ethical. And by that, I mean, can evidence and can substantiate what they actually are claiming that they do and that they sell.
Is there an avenue to be both fashionable and fashion conscious?
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. Yes. Buying secondhand is a good way to do that. There are so many different platforms for secondhand clothing.
Sarah Phillips is the founder of the Florida Fabric Collective. You can jog, walk, run, sprint, casually saunter with Plogging for Pints on Saturday morning, meeting up at the Ivanhoe Park Brewing Company. That's all for today's edition of Engage. I'm Sharon Stone. Thank you for joining us. All Things Considered is coming up following NPR News.